good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you're tuning in from. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all enjoying this Saturday, and I hope you're eager to learn something new today. I'm here to talk to you guys about how you can structure your product thinking to excel as a product manager. And through my talk, I'm going to talk about what I think makes a good PM and some pain points and some opportunities that I've faced on my journey of becoming a good PM. If I do say so myself. And I'm then here to talk to you about how I think structuring your product thinking will help you to excel and overcome a lot of these pain points or enhance some of those opportunities. And then finally, I'll talk to you guys about how you actually then do go about structuring your product thinking in a positive way. So a little bit about me. I'm Evie Brockwell. I'm a senior product manager at booking.com, where I've worked for over the last 3 years. I started as a PM and I've managed to grow into a senior PM role. And prior to that, I worked at TUI. So it's pretty safe to say that I love travel. The area that I look after is the part of the pre-book journey. So I make sure we can get customers into our website and we attract customers to our website, and then make sure that we progress them into search and they can choose the right product for them. So a lot of my experience and a lot of the things that I talk about are to do with customer facing products, but you can also apply this thinking to anything that you look at, any kind of product you look at, as we'll talk about later. So what do I want us to achieve today? Well, hopefully you're all here because you're engaged and you're wanting to learn on a Saturday. Well done. So the thing that I think you're all here to do is to become better PMs. So the outcome of my talk and the thing that I want to make sure you guys can go away with are some great tools that will help you to excel as PMs. So that's what we're all here to try and achieve. So then when I was thinking about ideas for this talk, I was thinking, well, how can I help you guys to excel as PMs? So I thought about it and I thought, well, do you know what? Let's do some research. I can draw upon my own experience and my own insights, but I'll also do a quick bit of research. So in this space, I did a Google search for what makes an excellent PM, and I looked through the top 10 articles. And in an ideal product world, I'd have spent a bit more time doing some surveys, doing some interviews, speaking to some of you lovely guys to see what you think your pain points are and what your opportunities are. So maybe we can engage on that next time to work out how I can help. But I managed to come up with some conclusive concepts out of some of the research that I did. So from trawling the top 10 articles, which, by the way, tell us like a million things that we need to do to be good PMs. It's a little bit overwhelming. So I've managed to cut that down a little bit and group some of the key themes and some of the things that are more specific to us as generic PMs. So if we want to specialize in certain areas, or off the back of this talk, there might be certain elements of your product thinking that you want to go away and look at further, which you can do. But I've pulled together a lot of the key themes. And a lot of those key themes actually resonated with my own experience. And what I'd encourage you guys to do, you guys that are here to learn and want to make sure you can excel, is to reflect on your own experience. And even if you take some time to do that now or after this talk, think about what you think makes you a great PM and what you think your pain points are. What are you less comfortable with? What do you feel comes less naturally to you? Note those things down and make sure that you take away the key parts of this talk that are going to help you to optimize on some of those areas. And I also looked at my own insights. When I was looking at my experience, I looked at when I started out, and I also looked at where I am now and the things that helped me to excel on the way, which is why I feel like I'm quite qualified to talk to you guys about this today. And then I also looked at my own insights, my own observations from those around me, which I've been doing since I started out in my career. And I think it's super, super important that you guys, again, do the same thing, that you look up to other PMs or other people in the business that you think you respect and you think that you understand. And you look at what you think they do really well. And then if you ever have the occasional meeting with people or encounter where you don't think that you're as brought into what they're trying to achieve, for example, you can note down why you think that is. And then you can make sure that you're developing your own skills to be trying to excel on those positives and also trying to counteract where you think that potentially people aren't as great at their job as they might be all the time. So there are all of the bits that I've pulled together, research from Google, my own experience and how I felt when I started out, and my insights and observations from those around me, whether they're more senior or now that I'm in a senior position, people that I work with in my team, and what I think makes a great PM from all of those areas, and where I think the opportunities are. And I also looked at some of the pain points and some of the things that I think can be frustrating, but I've decided to frame them all as opportunities to get you guys excited this morning. So what are these opportunities that I've found from this quick research that I've done? Well, the opportunities I think we have to excel as PMs, and hopefully this list covers most of the scenarios that you guys are thinking of. But if you've got anything else that's different in your mind, then when I go through the topic on structuring your product thinking and what you can use, make sure you're drawing out the bits that you think are really relevant to you and how you think you can grow. So the key opportunities that I've listed down here, opportunity one, making sure that we have a clear vision, direction and roadmap that aligns with business strategy. So a lot of the stuff that I looked at talks about how we need to, as PMs, to have clear visions, which is quite obvious. We're the ones leading the product and taking it in a certain direction. But having a vision isn't enough. It needs to be based upon something. It needs to be based upon where the business wants to go. And you need to make sure that on top of that vision, you also have a strategic idea in your mind about how you're going to reach that North Star from where you are now, and how that aligns with the business along the way, and what the key things are that you think you can do to deliver upon a better product and solve customer problems, which we'll come on to in the second point, to help you to hit that vision. So that's all about your direction and then your roadmap that aligns with that, that is always aligning with the business strategy to get you to somewhere positive. The second opportunity that we have is to excel as PMs is to make sure we're exceptional at understanding the customer and their problems and prioritizing ways to solve these. So there's a lot that I read that talks about different things around understanding the customer, but key topics are making sure that we have customer empathy, making sure that we can understand through research what our customer wants. We're not just listening to our gut. What a lot of us can be guilty as PMs, especially when we first start out, is thinking that we need to know the answers to everything, but we don't. We know what we know, and we know how we work and what we think is great. But I sat down with my mum trying to use a website this morning, and it was next to impossible for her to find the bed sheets that she wanted, because she has a different way of thinking to me. So even when she searched for them, she couldn't find them, but I managed to find them through some filters and a few different routes. And we need to know that we can't always design for what we think is the right thing to do. We need to be speaking to other people and find out where their pain points are, because it's sometimes such simple things. So it's all about having customer empathy, making sure that you can pull all of that together. You can understand your different customer types and you can choose the right ones to prioritize, and you can work out the best ways to solve their customer problems. And again, these are kind of the things that I struggled with when I first started out. I struggled to work out where I think we should be going without someone telling me what to do. And I didn't really understand how to speak to customers and understand what they wanted. I was great at prioritizing a few different areas of ideas, but understanding the problems and the North Star, that was something that I found quite difficult. And then finally, defining goals and metrics and being able to successfully work towards these. So once you've understood your customer, what their problems are, and you've thought about how you can solve some of those problems, you need to make sure that you can define the right goals and the right metrics and prove how you're working towards that overall North Star and the business strategy, and making sure that the roadmap is actually achieving the right outcomes. And finally, one of the most important points is that we need to be able to do this as PMs in a way that engages stakeholders and our teams. One of the key things that I looked at was communication skills and leadership skills. And our whole job is to get people excited about where we want to go. And we don't typically manage people. So we need to get people inspired, and we need to get them to want to come on the journey with us to help and make sure we can achieve those goals. That might be working with people like marketing, it might be working with sales or commercial, and especially your engineering team. You want everyone to be making the right decisions and coming on the journey with you and being able to do what they need to do to help you out. So that's something that, again, we need to be really, really, really good at. And one of the things I found when observing those around me, the people that get me really excited as PMs are the people that have that clear vision. They know how to get there. They know exactly what their customer problems are, and they have them all mapped out. They have great ideas that all then map to that North Star and where they want to get to. And they sell that in a really simple and easy to understand way that gets me excited. And I think where I struggle with PMs sometimes, and where I struggled myself at the start, is when PMs come up with ideas, but you don't know why. You don't know what it is that we're actually trying to deliver. It's just a great idea. And sometimes we all fall short as well when, and hopefully you've all heard of the hippo, which is the highest paid person's opinion, when they just tell us what to do and we go away and deliver it, but we don't always know why. We don't know exactly what it is we're trying to achieve. And we deliver it and it's great. and we potentially are really good at that area of our jobs, but actually making sure that that has a massive benefit to the customer is something that I think a lot of PMs can improve on. And making sure that all of that thinking is tied up in a way that it makes sense. So they're the opportunities that I wanted to make sure we could do and work on to help you guys to excel. There's quite a few different areas to cover off, and trying to do that in a half an hour talk I thought would be quite difficult. So to help make sure that we can enhance these opportunities, I came up with a few ideas to make sure that we could then get to the point where you guys can excel as PMs. And one of the things that I thought about was, how could we actually go about A/B testing and improving the way that you guys do that? Because that's something that we do loads at booking.com that I'd like to say I'm quite an expert in. And that can really help you with that third point about making sure that you've got clear goals and metrics and you're measuring your success towards those. So that's great. That would help with one element, but it probably wouldn't help with the rest. And then the other one that I thought about, well, I thought of a few, but another one that I'll mention was how to improve your product discovery. And again, that's something that I've done quite a lot of. I've learned a lot along the way about how to achieve great outcomes through product discovery. And that also would probably help with point 2. So it would help us to make sure we can understand what our customer problems are and prioritize ways to solve those. And even point 3, making sure that we can then measure the way that we're going to do that and making sure we're achieving the right outcome. But it still didn't really hit the overall picture in all 3 points. And it didn't really hit the point about that I think is super important about how we sell what we're doing to our teams and our stakeholders and get everyone excited and brought in about what we're doing. So one of the topics that I then decided that I'm going to focus on today was how to structure your product thinking to help you to excel as a product manager. Now, why do I think that's a great topic? Well, structuring your product thinking encompasses all of these areas. When you structure your product thinking, you need to make sure that you've got a vision and a direction, and it aligns with the business strategy. And then your roadmap, if you structure your product thinking correctly, will map back to all of these things and you'll be able to deliver something successful. When you're structuring your product thinking, there's also a huge area about noting down what those customer opportunities or pain points are and making sure that you generate multiple versions of those and that you can use the way you think to help you prioritize. And another area that comes into your product thinking and structuring that effectively is making sure that you know exactly what metric you're trying to shift and that you've got a way of shifting that and measuring it. So when I talk through the process that I'll talk through in a bit, it actually encompasses all of these areas and it forces you to think about each one. And if you structure your product thinking well, it is so easy to then turn around to other people and tell them exactly what you're doing and why, and do it in a way that they should be brought in, they should understand it, they should come on that journey with you, and they should be so excited about what you want to do, and they should be able to get involved. And just making some small tweaks to the way that we frame things and the way that we think and making sure that we can articulate that in a super positive way, I found has helped me overcome so many problems. So when the hippo comes to me and suggests that we should do something, I've already structured my product thinking about what I'm doing in a way that I can explain why I think we should do what I think we should do instead. Or I can have a productive conversation with them and ask them certain questions about the way they've structured their product thinking to understand if I think it's a worthwhile idea that we should then take into the team and carry forwards. And by understanding their product thinking, I can then take that to my team and sell it to them in a way that makes sense, as opposed to it just being one of those things that we have to do. I've also found that when other product managers can sell their concepts to me and I understand why they're trying to do something and what journey they've gone on to get there, I'm more engaged and I'm more willing to make sure that they're coming up with great concepts off the back of that. Whereas often, if people come to me and say, well, I just think it's a good idea, I just think we can do that, I really struggle to then give the right support and to offer potentially help from my team to help others to achieve that. I really want to make sure that we're achieving something because it's where the business wants to go. It aligns with our strategy. It aligns with what our customers think is a problem, and that it's actually going to make a difference to the bottom line from the metrics that we measure. And if people can encompass all of these areas, I find it so easy to get brought in and make sure that we're all helping each other to deliver the right things. So hopefully this is something that you guys will still see a value. Hopefully you agree with some of these opportunities and you think these are also things that you could enhance as part of your product development skill set. So we'll talk about how to do it in a minute. So if they're my opportunities and they're all the reasons why I think this is great, well, what's my hypothesis? How am I going to check that this is the right topic to be talking to you guys about? Well, the way that we write hypotheses at booking.com is like this. So based on my research into what makes a good PM and my own insight, because that's the research that I did, and that's the evidence that I've got, I believe that improving the structure to your product thinking will encourage new PMs. It will encourage all PMs, but the specific area that I'm trying to look at right now is new PMs, to develop better product concepts and increase buy-in and engagement from those that they work with. And I will know this is true when I see that PMs have improved product execution and buy-in, and I will measure this through qualitative feedback. And to put an actual measure on that, the way that I'll measure this is my aim is to get 50% of you guys to actually report back to me and tell me if this talk has been of use. And if 50% of you give me positive feedback, I will see that as this being a successful hypothesis. So now that we've covered off all of the reasons why I think it's super important to structure your product thinking, and I've spoken to you guys about what I think makes a good PM and the opportunities that you guys have, it's now time to actually look at how you go about structuring your product thinking. So to structure your product thinking, you need to be able to generate a couple of sentences along these lines that are then easy to communicate with everyone else. And by the time we've gone through all of these 5 steps, the way that you structure your thinking will end up looking something like this, which is to achieve our outcome, the thing that we want to achieve overall, we should implement a certain idea, as this should improve a certain pain point or opportunity that our customer faces, which we know is a problem because we have evidence behind that. And we will know if we've achieved our outcome by testing our hypothesis and seeing a metric change. So I'll talk you through the 5 steps now that will help us get to this point, and then we'll reflect on this sentence and see if you guys are confident in being able to do this. So, step 1, we need to start with an outcome. Now, for those of you that don't typically work with outcomes now, I'll do a brief explanation as to what an outcome is and why they're useful. So, outcomes are the changes in customer behaviour that actually drive business success. They're the true measure of our work and how well we're meeting the needs of our customers or users. Now, this is a quote by Jeff Gothelf, and if you want to know more about outcomes, then you can read some of his books around Lean UX and Sense and Respond, where he covers off a lot on this topic. So if you want to go and find out more, dig into a lot of that. But the key, most important thing here, and the reason why we want to focus on outcomes, I'll come on to in a quick second. So we want to focus on outcomes over outputs. And this is a quote that explains why. So we may ask a vendor to create a website for us, but our goal is actually to sell more products online. And the vendor could deliver the website, and it could be an excellent website, but we might not actually end up selling more products online. So if that's the case, then the website has been our output, and the output might have been its success. But the actual bottom line that we're trying to drive as a business and the growth that we're trying to see is through selling products, which is an outcome. And even though our output might be great, it might not actually achieve the desired outcome. And therefore, as product teams, we're then not actually enhancing the business. We're not hitting the bottom line. And I'm sure we've all worked in areas, or we're aware of areas where a lot of the way that we are judged is based on how well we can ship stuff. What's our velocity? How many features have we shipped? Did we ship our features on time? And there's not always enough emphasis on how positive these features have been, and trying to understand before we even start shipping these features what it is that we're actually trying to drive. We might have all been asked to make sure we can deliver a new website or deliver an app, but without knowing the rationale as to what we're trying to achieve from that, we can't always make the right decisions along the way to achieve that end goal. And the end goal as a business is typically somehow to increase revenue and increase profits. But we need to know exactly what it is that they want to increase. And that needs to start from top down in the business. We need to understand the business strategy and where the business is going and what the goals of the business are over the next year, 3 years, 5 years, and be able to break that down into what that means for a different department and therefore what that means for our team. And we don't want our goals to be super generic. We want our goals to be a bit more specific than that. But the benefit of focusing on the outcome is that we're then always driving something positive forwards. We're not just shipping stuff and turning a blind eye and not knowing how well it's performed. We're always making sure we're doing something that benefits the business at an overall level in the most substantial way. So that's why outcomes are important. Let's talk about how we actually define what our outcome should be. So our outcome should align with business goals. So like I said, we should know where that business is trying to go, and we should know how that breaks down to fit our team. And if that doesn't get done already, you should still be able to find out the business strategy, and you should be able to work out roughly how you think you can align to that based on what your product team is, where you work, what your skill set is, what your expertise are, and make sure that your outcomes are going to help benefit overall. Your outcome in your team also wants to be specific enough. So if the outcome for the whole business is to increase revenue, that's great, but you need to work out what that means for your team. So for a front-end facing website team, that could be that you want to increase conversion. It could be that you want to increase basket price. It could be that you want to sell more profitable products. So you want to work out exactly how that goal can be broken down into a way that makes sense for your team, that can be more specific. And you also want to be able to measure this. So it needs to be something where you can actually, through hopefully quantitative feedback, but qualitative if you need to, you're able to actually get a measure for how successful you've been. So that when we talk about these outcomes and if we're actually delivering that value, we can make sure when we get to the step where we're measuring it, we can prove whether we have moved that outcome or not. So that's step one. Step one is to focus on an outcome. Hopefully you guys can all reflect on an area you're working on now and can think about whether you're delivering an output or whether you're actually trying to achieve an outcome. If you're delivering an output, go and challenge yourselves and think, well, why am I trying to deliver that output? And you'll soon be able to come up with an outcome. If you're already working on outcomes, great. Outcomes align really well with OKRs. For those of you that haven't used OKRs, your O is your objective and your KRs are your key results. And your objective is typically your outcome, and your KRs are the way that you're going to measure that. So for anyone that's already working in that space, you'll already be in a good place here. You'll have those outcomes, and then we can move on from there. Like I say, for those of you that aren't quite there yet, you'll be able to work out how you think this can map to an outcome. So step two, you want to understand why you're not already achieving your outcome. So why is it currently a problem? Or what are the opportunities that you've not met yet that mean that you're not at the point where you want to be at and you've not achieved that outcome goal? And you want to do that based on evidence-based research. So you want to pull together all of the information you've got around the outcome that you're trying to achieve and work out what the opportunities are for your customer and what the pain points are. So it might be that you've not achieved that outcome yet because there are things that are frustrating on your website. There are things that don't work that well for customers. Or it might be that you've got a brand new idea and it's a brand new opportunity and you might want to frame things in that kind of way. Opportunities and pain points can sometimes be the inverse of each other. But equally, opportunities are more likely to be greenfield. They're more likely to be new things that you can do to capitalize on things that your customers don't already know that they want. And pain points are likely to be things that you're not doing so well right now, that you could improve, that you know there's bottlenecks in the journey that you can enhance. And if there's any gaps in your research, if you've gone through all of your research and you think, well, actually, we don't know this, and this about our customers, well, that's where you go away and you do more research, you focus on more product discovery. But if you can document everything that you know, work out what's an opportunity, what's a pain point, and then prioritize them, you'll be in a good place. And you prioritize these things based on a few different factors. So it's up to you guys how you prioritize internally in general. But some of the things that we look at are how feasible something might be to fix. What's our reach? So how many of our users do we think that opportunity or pain point impacts? How many ideas we might end up having towards fixing those, whether it's something that we've got loads of evidence on or not, if it's something we've tried before or not, how it fits into the overall outcome and how likely it is for us to reach that end goal through those pain points and opportunities. And they're discussions that we have internally as a team once we've documented our evidence and worked out what sits where, we'll have those discussions and we'll work out what we think our most likely bets are to help us to achieve that overall outcome. And if you want to do this with your teams, this is a great framework that you guys can use. And when we talked earlier about one of the key things being getting your team engaged and getting stakeholders engaged, as you go through structuring your product thinking in this manner, a really great thing to do is to get others involved on that journey about how you've reached your end goal and what you think you should be doing. So you can run something like a value proposition canvas on your own or in a team as a workshop. And one of the key things that you do here is you can note down what your outcome is and what your area of focus is. And you can identify the customers that you think you should be looking at. And you identify what it is that they want to achieve. And they're your customer jobs. So from there, once you've got your customer jobs listed, you can then write down what their pain points are right now and what would delight them, what would take them to another level, what are they currently not getting from any offering or service that would be great. And the same with pain points. You don't just have to look internally at your own website. You might look across the whole market and look at things like in the banking industry, for example. You might realize that everything's frustrating and laborious and things can take ages. And you could see that as an opportunity, or you could see these as pains that customers currently face and barriers that they have to overcome to achieve what they want to achieve. And then once you've done that, we'll come on to ideas next. There's point 3. But the value proposition canvas is great at helping you then map your gains and your pains to ideas. So if customers have got pains, you can come up with concepts that are pain relievers that are going to help your customer to actually overcome some of those issues. And the same with gains. If there's things that you think would delight your customer, you can then generate ideas that help you work out how you can offer those kind of concepts to a customer. So that's point 3. It's all about ideation. It's all about understanding how that problem can be solved. So if those of you haven't already looked into Teresa Torres, she's great at product discovery and she's got a great blog. And she speaks about one thing really passionately, which is an opportunity tree. And this is the kind of structure that we use in our teams, in my teams at booking.com, where she basically talks about focus on your outcome first. So there's some more outcome reading there for you guys if you want it. And then she talks about defining your opportunities, but like I say, they could also be pain points. They could be frustrations, which you might be able to reframe as opportunities, but work out what suits you guys best as a team. And then from there, you generate ideas. And the whole point behind the opportunity tree is that it helps you to structure your product thinking in a way that every idea you come up with is actually going to help you achieve the outcome you want to achieve. So any ideas that don't match a pain point or an opportunity, and any pain points and opportunities that don't match your outcome, should be totally disregarded and they should go and sit in another box somewhere else, even if they're a great idea. And that helps to keep everyone on track, whether you're working with stakeholders in your team or even yourself, to make sure that everything you're doing is going to help you hit your end goal. And it's also great because it forces you to generate multiple pain points and opportunities to achieve an outcome, and multiple ideas to help you to achieve that pain point or opportunity growth. And by doing that, it forces us to think more laterally and not just come up with one concept, so that when you're challenged about why you're coming up with a certain idea, or not challenged, you just want to make sure you're doing the right thing yourself, you know that you've explored a few different areas and you've been able to prioritize those and settle on the right thing. So when we spoke about some of those opportunities about things we wanted to improve as PMs, your outcome helps you make sure you've set your vision and it aligns with the business. Your pain points and opportunities help you to understand your customer problems and prioritize effectively. And then your ideas help you to make sure you're coming up with a roadmap that is going to actually help you meet your goals. So these 3 simple steps so far should hopefully already mean that we're excelling as PMs. In terms of ideas, I hope and think that you guys will already be running a lot of ideation sessions and know some of the best ways to do that. So I won't focus on that, but the key thing is that you should be trying to work out several different ways to solve the same kind of problem, and then make sure that you're prioritizing them effectively. Again, what's your best bet that an idea might help you to solve that problem or opportunity? And again, that might be based on feasibility, how quickly you can get something out and test it, but please make sure that you're coming up with multiple ideas and then prioritizing them. So on to point 4. Once you've got your ideas, you then want to convert these into hypotheses to make sure that we're then measuring the impact that those concepts are going to have on our overall outcome. And as I say, this is the way that we generate hypotheses at booking.com. So based on evidence, which we should have because we've looked into our customer problems, we've documented the evidence, we've understood why they exist, We believe that X, which is your idea, will encourage a certain set of users, which you've probably identified if you've done the value proposition canvas and you've noted down the customer jobs, to change a certain behaviour. Now, that will be the behaviour that we think will help them with either that pain point or that opportunity. And we will know that this is true when we see a certain impact on a certain metric. And again, when we speak about our outcome being measurable, we should already have an idea as to what the metric is that we're going to measure. And we might break that down further for a more specific area that we're targeting. But we want to basically make sure that we can measure it in a way that maps back to our outcome. And if we're looking at new product development, the hypothesis might have started in a more broad manner, and we might have settled on a more specific idea that we can then measure. And if we're looking at smaller things, this kind of product thinking still works. You might not spend as much time in step one in terms of defining your vision and where you're trying to go, and step two in terms of understanding the customer problems. Those steps might be quite quick if you're working on more conversion rate optimization. So if you're taking an area like, I want to optimize filters because my overall outcome is to increase conversion, and I've noticed that filters are a pain point and this is the evidence I've got behind it, those steps might be quite quick to work through, but you're still working through these same steps and you've still then got a hypothesis that you want to test. So that's what we do next. We move on to step 5, which is all about measuring progress towards our outcome by actually testing our concepts. Now, again, Jeff Gothelf and Josh Seiden talk about this in Lean UX, and they use this kind of framework, which is about building things as quickly as possible to make sure that you can then measure the feedback. So if you've generated your hypotheses, you want to work out the best way to experiment through this. And that could be through an A/B test, if you can code something quite quickly. If you can't, if it's more effective, you might want to test through prototypes. You might even test through just speaking to a few users and doing some paper prototypes. There are several different ways that you can test a concept, but this step is about working out the quickest way that you can do that, and then making sure that you measure it and you learn. And you basically then establish whether you think your hypothesis was correct, and if you should continue to expand that hypothesis, or if you think it was false. And it might be false, you might need to come up with a new idea to help make sure that you can hit your desired effect. But by measuring and learning and gathering feedback, we can constantly reassess where we're up to. And the beauty of structuring your product thinking and of going through all these steps will mean that no matter what, if you've been into step 3 and you know what the outcome is that you're trying to achieve, and you've identified many pain points and opportunities and many ideas, then if your hypothesis is correct, great, you can continue to expand on that area, potentially implementing other ideas from that space. And if your hypothesis turns out to be false, but you still want to achieve your outcome, you can go back to all of the ideas and the pain points that you've generated here and choose where you should pivot to and focus. And that's the beauty of us working in these agile environments. We can easily do that. And if we were just delivering an output, we might have spent months working towards that output to find out it failed. But if we're working towards an outcome, we can pivot as soon as we've learned stuff and generate a different output that might actually be more suitable to achieving the outcome than the one that we were originally set on. So again, focusing on the benefit of looking at outcomes. So once you've gone through all 5 of those steps, you should be able to structure your sentences in this kind of way that we spoke about at the start. And that is, to achieve our outcome, which we've established in step 1, we should implement a certain idea, which we established in step 3, and this should help us to improve a certain pain point or an opportunity, which we established in point 2 through doing our research and noting all of these down, and we will know this is a problem, which we know is a problem or an opportunity, because of the evidence that we gathered in that step. And then we move on to step 4 and 5, and we talk to people about knowing whether we've achieved our outcome or not, through testing our hypothesis, which we established in step 4, and seeing a metric change, which we will test in step 5. So those 5 simple steps help you generate this 2-sentence structure that you can go and say quite easily to anyone, whether that's a stakeholder or someone in your team, whether that's people that you're trying to get involved on the journey and get excited, or if you're trying to tell someone why you're doing something and you don't want to implement the idea that they've come up with, because it's potentially just an idea and they don't know what the outcome is and they don't know all of those other steps. It gives you really robust foundations to, 1, make sure that you've been through all of the right steps, 2, make sure you're delivering the best product yourself, And two, to make sure that you can get buy-in from everyone around you and get people excited about what it is you're trying to achieve and give them the confidence that you know exactly what you're trying to deliver and why. So let's reflect on the talk. Let's reflect on those 5 steps and what I've been through. And this slide is to help highlight that you can use this structure for anything. It doesn't just have to be your product thinking, and it can be used by any department and any area to structure their own thoughts. And I used it for this talk, which was hopefully useful. So we started out with the talk outcome. I wanted to make sure you guys could excel as PMs and identified the opportunities and the pain points that you face. And I framed them all as opportunities in this instance, but they were to make sure that you can have a clear vision, direction, and roadmap aligning with the business strategy, to understand customer problems and prioritize ways to solve these, and to define goals and metrics and be able to successfully work towards these, and finally, to make sure we can do this in a way where everyone's engaged and excited about what we're trying to do. So hopefully those 5 steps have helped to overcome those. So step 1, your outcome, and step 2, understand the opportunities and pain points, and step 3, having ideas. They all help you with having a clear vision, direction, and a roadmap that aligns with the business strategy. Understanding customer problems, we spoke about heavily in point 2, and prioritizing ways to solve these, we spoke about. And then point 4 and 5 are all about defining the right goals and metrics and successfully working towards them. And all of these steps can be encompassed to sell it and get other people engaged. So this talk should have tackled all of these opportunities. And I spoke about the ideas that I came up with, and the idea that I settled on was how to structure your product thinking. And my hypothesis that I went through was that I believe that improving the structure to your product thinking will help new PMs to develop better product concepts and increase buying and engagement from those that they work with. And I will know this is true when I see that PMs have improved product execution and buy-in, and this will happen through me receiving qualitative feedback. So we move on to point 5, which was test and feedback. Point 5, my test, was giving this talk to you guys. And then feedback, me being able to measure this. Well, if you guys go away and you found that this has been super useful straight away, then please drop me a message on LinkedIn. You can find me as Evie Brockwell. And hopefully, if you guys can go away and start incorporating some of these thoughts into what you do next, you can actually try this out in practice, and then you can reach out to me and let me know if it's been successful or not. And if you've got any other questions or you'd like any other help, or want to reflect on anything else that you've seen here to help you improve, then again, please reach out to me. Any feedback would be much appreciated. Hopefully you've all taken away some key insights here, and this will be super useful for you guys to take into your working environment. And thank you for attending. Enjoy the rest of your day.